Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good, good.
Before we get started with anything, I do want to let you know ahead of time that we do record our consultations. It's on the form and everything, just so that way there's any necessary information in there, you can always have it available.
That's great. That's great.
Um, Okie dokie. So why don't you go ahead and we'll get right into it. Why don't you tell me whose consultation is for and what kind of stuff you're trying to work on?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Justin, by the way. You're Elias.
Yes, I'm alive. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Yeah, nice to meet you. So this is for Henry. He's a Weimaraner. He'll be 4 in February. Um,
Okay.
and he has when he was like 7 or 8 months old, he already went through like this. I think it was the 6 week program
Hmm.
with and so since you, I basically kind of like fell out of pattern with Henry in terms of like not reinforcing, you
Hmm.
know, certain things. I still have the e-collar,
Yeah.
but the challenge is he pulls so much when we're walking. Um, and I guess the other thing we should say is, unfortunately, my partner was unable to be with us today. But like, part of this is just like helping to reinforce for Nick, my partner, like for
Hmm.
both Nick and I, like the right behaviors to help keep Henry from primarily from leash pulling. And then like when he gets excited, when he sees people, sometimes he's jumping up on them and just like reinforcing some of the basic commands like stay and sit. So like there's no aggression, like anything like that. It's just those basic elements.
Okay. Um, so when you guys did this program, what
Yeah.
kind of e-collar did you use?
Yep. So it's the Dogtra e-collar.
Uh-huh.
I forget exactly the model number. Jesse actually like we paid Jesse for it. He got the Dogtra collar for
Yeah.
us. Um, and also the other data point is like within the past 3 weeks, actually, we've inconsistently been using this soft lead. Is that what it's called? Like when you put it over his muzzle, like over his
Oh, the gentle leader.
gentle leader,
Yeah.
and like that has helped so much. Like that really does help. But like what I don't want to do is like you unless you tell me this is the best thing to do. Like I don't want to use like the e-collar and the gentle leader. Like I just want to, basically make sure that
You're not overwhelming him. You want to keep it simple.
yeah, exactly. We're
Okay.
doing the right thing for Henry. And so like Nick wasn't I wasn't in a relationship with Nick when we went through the first training,
Mhm.
with Henry.
Yeah.
And like likewise, we wanted, Nick and I want to do what's right, and I want to make sure that Nick's getting the right guidance too, so that we're keeping it simple for Henry, and we're just
Yeah.
just help out. So,
Okay. Um, so right now you're primarily using the gentle leader to walk him, correct?
um, using the gentle leader and the collar,
Oh,
although
together. Okay.
yeah, but I'll tell you, like I haven't been. I need to be better about actually buzzing him with the e-collar. Like I don't do it as much as I should. So I think but yeah, we've been using both.
Yeah. Um, when he's doing the leash pulling, how are you addressing it right now? Like I know you said sometimes you use the e-collar, the gentle leader's been helping. What's
Yeah.
like your response if he sees something he wants to go over by, he starts pulling, like what's your first kind of move there?
Um, usually, like I'll stop walking
Hmm.
and make him like sit down and heel,
Yeah.
uh, and then like resume walking like 5, 10 seconds later.
Yeah.
Uh, but like I'll tell you, it's probably only successful in curbing his pulling like maybe a quarter of the time. Like,
Yeah. All right. That makes sense, and I'll go more in depth on that in a second here.
Yep.
For the behaviors like the excitement and all that, um, what instances are those kind of appearing? Just when he's seeing people, or when he's playing, he maybe gets a little too overexcited, or
Yeah, good question. It's like when so like when someone comes into the house,
Mhm.
like he gets excited and he wants to like jump up and greet them. And then randomly, like on the street when we're walking and he sees another person coming by, uh I don't know, like usually it's male figures. Like I think he actually thinks that he's like we're about to see Nick, my partner. I think he like mistakes who it is and like he gets excited and jumps up, so it's like to greet them. It's not aggressive behavior, but it's annoying.
Yeah. So just excitement when greeting people, really, having those manners of not jumping and all that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The other thing he does, which I think is unrelated, is when he sees another dog approaching him, if it's a large dog, like he lays down on the ground and he waits for the other dog to come towards him. So it'd
Mhm.
be great if we could break him with that too. But that one's not as troublesome. Like,
Yeah.
but he does that as well.
Okay. Um, Okie dokie. You said that he tries to approach dogs like with a lot of energy, or no?
No, what'll happen is he'll see a dog, in the distance that's like walking towards him. So Henry will lay down and
Oh,
like
okay.
wait for the dog to approach him,
Yeah.
and he'll let the dog approach him. Like they'll sniff each other, and
Mhm.
then like Henry will get excited and like we'll run away, walk away.
Yeah.
On a very rare occasion, he has a thing for gray poodles somehow. If it's like a gray poodle, like he barks and growls at them. He doesn't like them, but
Okay.
like whatever. I mean, that's fine. But yeah.
Okay. Um, does he ever do that like uncomfortable barking or growling in any other situations, or it's just with gray poodles?
It's just with gray poodles, and then I guess like if he's got if he has like a ball in his mouth, he loves ball, and like another dog's trying to steal it from him,
Yeah.
like he'll growl,
Okay.
but yeah.
Yeah. Um, Okie dokie. Um, when he's getting a little overexcited, what is your way of dealing with that right now? Like your again, like kind of your first move when a situation that you're not wanting to happen, like the jumping, the excitement. What are you doing right now?
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing as before. Like I'm like stopping him from walking,
Hmm.
uh, and sitting down. I think my issue there is I probably need to just use the e-collar more and like reinforce through the e-collar, but I haven't been.
Yeah. Okie dokie. Uh, so with all this information, I'll go ahead and start going through maybe where you're having some issues, what's working against you, what's kind of good things that you're doing, and then we'll kind of get into more how we would like update the training and everything for Henry.
Great.
Uh, so for the leash pulling and everything, it's good that he already has some experience with the e-collar and handling the pressure of the collar and all that, because that can already be a large hump for dogs to get over. Just
Yeah,
first kind of learning how to go with the pressure and everything. But it sounds like he already has a basis for it. We just need to be probably a little bit more black and white with things.
exactly.
So um, when dogs are given this gray area where there's this inconsistency that you're having, where like sometimes you're more on the e-collar, sometimes you're not, um, things become a little bit confusing to Henry.
Right.
So now he's not sure of the rules, because maybe when you're on a walk, he's like, okay, I just got to pull a few seconds ago, but now
Right.
I'm not getting to pull. And so then he's gonna keep going back and forth because he's not sure.
Right.
Um, so that's one thing that is probably working against you a little bit, because I would just recommend, and you'll go through all this with the program and everything, but if you're going to use the e-collar, I would just be very strict when you're using the e-collar, when you're in a structured walk, when you're doing these commands, just so that way you're building up that reliability and that consistency for him.
Right.
So if you start letting things slide here and there when you're doing these more structured activities, now they're going to become not so structured moving forward in the future. And maybe when there's an emergency situation and you need that recall, or maybe there's a not so friendly dog on the side and he's supposed to be in heel and you don't want him to pull that way, we might start seeing some inconsistencies in those more important situations because to him, he's just not too sure when the rules apply, when they don't. And if there's situations where you're not going to be using the e-collar, because there's sometimes people who do the training, they just want to go on a more like free walk. They're not worried about using the e-collar. That's fine, because now we're not creating any inconsistencies, because now is a time where we're not using the e-collar and he's like, okay, we're not using it. So like, obviously the rules are I could just kind of hang out and chill. So there needs to be that kind of consistency with the discipline and then with the free time.
Right.
And honestly, that alone will probably help clean up like 80% of your issues, because a lot of it is just kind of him having these extra manners in the situations where you want him to listen. But that's like a little bit what I'm hearing there. As far as the gentle leader on your walks, the gentle leader is a very good tool, and it's something that we use when getting dogs used to pressure sometimes. So we always include it in something like our puppy programs, because they're very young. We don't want to overwhelm them too much while they're young and they're still trying to understand everything. So we kind of build them up. And gentle leader is usually one of those first beginning introductions to pressure, because one, it gives more control of the head. So as I'm sure you've noticed, if you pull him when it's around his head, he's going to guide towards you more, rather than a leash that is like lower on his neck. He's going to have more power there. So one, it's a little bit easier to control the dog. And then two, it's starting to get them to learn how to, I feel the leash going this way, I'm going to go this way now. And they're starting to get that introduction to pressure. Henry already has an introduction with all that. So gentle leader is something that can work, but from what it sounds like, it's not really that serious to him. So he'll listen to it sometimes, but if he really wants to go over to whatever's distracting him, he's not going to let the gentle leader try and tell him what to do. So you can still use it with the e-collar, but ideally, if we're using the e-collar, then we shouldn't need to rely on something like a gentle leader. So if everything's looking good with the e-collar, there should be no pulling anyways. So then it's like gentle leader is kind of not that necessary in the moment. Does that make sense?
Yep, it does. Yep.
So, I mean, ideally, when you do the program, we would probably not be using the gentle leader, because we wouldn't want that being used as like a crutch, because if you get everything good with the e-collar, then these extra tools aren't really playing an important part in your walk anymore.
Right.
And then on the walk, I'm sure you guys went over the heel command in your first lessons with Henry and everything. But just as a little refresher, since the command is so involved for Henry, and since there's so many parts to it for him to try and keep track of, that is what's really helping with the distractions on the walk, with him not going off and doing his own thing, with him not kind of making these extra decisions. Because I don't know if you remember necessarily all the rules with heel or not, but Henry's supposed to be on your left side, right shoulder in line with the left leg the entire time. When you come to a stop, he does an automatic sit next to you, and this is for the entirety of while you're in the heel command. So that's a lot for Henry to keep track of, because now he's thinking, well, I can't pass dad. I can't fall behind. I can't go to his right side. Is he stopping? Okay, he's stopping. I have to sit down. So he's got to be mindful of you and be paying attention. And dogs and humans can only focus on so many things. So if he's really keyed into what you're doing, let's say a dog or a squirrel kind of runs by, you guys are at the park, he should just say basically in his head, like, I don't care what's going on over there. I see dad walking this way still. I got to keep track of dad. This is really important. Um, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what we would be trying to do with to address the leash pulling directly and to help with a little bit of the excitement and distractions on the walk. Because it's not necessarily that we're employing all of these different things for all these different scenarios. It's just we're creating this rule set for him.
Right.
And whenever he's not following this rule set, then we just get him back into heel. So, for example, doing the thing that you're doing now, where you're going to come to a stop and try and get him over that distraction. Since most of the time what you're seeing is, it sounds like it's not like any reactivity stuff. It's more just like, oh, I want to go over there. I want to see what's going on.
Yeah.
We would just keep it moving so that way we can kind of correct through that. So depending on the situation, sometimes we recommend people to stop, address whatever they need to address, and then keep going, or just to keep with the heel walk and address it. If he's getting distracted by something and it's just more of like I want to play or I want to go over there, then the way that you'd want to go about it is you'd want to keep your walk moving and correct him for falling behind, because now he's so focused on whatever's going on over there that he's losing track of you, and now he's breaking heel. So we're correcting him for falling behind and heel. Does that make sense?
So you're saying keep, all right, so don't stop altogether. Like keep walking and you keep moving.
Yeah.
So don't issue the heel command then. Like just keep walking.
Yeah, so the way that the heel command is ideally supposed to work is at the beginning of the walk, you say heel. Now you're just in heel no matter what until you release him with the break command. So we don't, if you say the word heel again, it's not going to hurt anything, but it's not necessary. So he's still in heel, even if you come to a stop, he sits down, whatever, he still needs to follow that rule set. So if you stop at like a red light or something and then you start walking again, he needs to be right there with you because he's still in the command.
Yep.
So let's say a situation, for example, you're walking, he's distracted, he's looking over there, and you're still walking forward, you're in heel. Now he's getting distracted, he's falling behind. I would keep walking, tap on the e-collar, and then he should think, oh, I lost track of dad. I got to go back over to him.
Yep.
And that's letting him know that, hey, buddy, we're walking this way. You got to keep walking this way with me. Like, I don't care what's over there.
Right.
Sometimes if you stop and have him sit and then you start tapping, you're kind of more tapping to get him into that auto sit. But we want to teach him that when you're walking, you keep walking with me. Like, you can look for a second, that's okay. But if you're looking to the degree to now you're messing up the job that you have to do, which is heel, then we need to employ the e-collar to get you back focused on your task, basically.
Yep. Makes sense.
So that's probably going to be a main part of whatever you guys are going to be working on, just because that's very useful command. Obviously, everybody wants their dogs. It's going to help with managing that excitement, because now we're taking away a lot of these options in his head of what's over there, what's over there, what's over there. We're just saying you're on a walk, you relax, walk with me. And then when we release Henry with the break command, okay, now you can go have your free time. Now you can go play, do all whatever crazy stuff you want to do.
Right. Right.
Does all that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So that's specifically for the leash pulling. With the little bit of reactivity towards poodles, without having, I guess, like too much more information or seeing him, I'm not sure necessarily why he would specifically be having reactivity with poodles. But that being said, that's still something that we can address pretty straightforward if that's something you're interested in even down the line. Just because it's okay if he doesn't like poodles. We're never gonna make him just like play with poodles.
Right.
But the only thing we would be keeping an eye on is we don't want him to default to this bad reaction to poodles. So like let's say, for some reason you're at the park and somebody has their poodle off leash and they're not trained very well and they just run up to your dog. We wouldn't want Henry in that moment kind of snapping or reaching a limit to where he's like, okay, I'm so uncomfortable, I'm going to address this dog myself. And we want him to understand that, okay, you don't have to like these poodles, you don't have to play with them, but just accept that they're there, pay them no mind, and then keep it moving.
Yeah.
So that's something that we would probably also want to keep an eye on. And again, that ties into the heel command because it's the same idea as the distractions, except here, the only difference is we would probably want to keep you in that situation with Henry. Like if there's a poodle across the sidewalk and you're on the other side with Henry and Henry's getting really uncomfortable and maybe he starts growling and really staring at the dog, then we would want to stay there, address that, and let him know we don't want you doing these responses where you're staring at the dog, you're building up, you're growling. We want you to just not care. You don't have to go and say hi to the dog. You don't have to do anything, but don't get into this defensive mode where like it's if this dog comes closer to you, you're gonna have an issue.
Right.
So we're correcting the fact that we don't want this growling, this staring, which could lead to bigger behaviors like maybe he tries to snap at the dog, maybe he gets anxious and gets defensive with the dog. We're eliminating all of that, but again, we can't really instill if he likes them or not. We can just teach him. I get it, you don't like him, but don't worry about it. Don't do anything with him.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yep. Yep.
Um, and then and that will be gone over in the program too. That's not really a super specific thing. It's just a little bit of reactivity and knowing how to handle the situation.
Right.
Um, as for the little bit of growling with the like when he has a ball, have you ever seen that escalate, or he just starts growling and then the dog leaves, or he starts growling and you take the ball away from him?
It it doesn't always escalate. Probably again, maybe like so he always growls,
Yeah.
but then maybe like a quarter of the time, a little bit less, actually less than a quarter of the time, he'll uh he'll like start barking more loudly and kind of like lunge towards the dog. I have never seen him actually try to bite the dog, but like he definitely gets more aggressive. Like he'll if the dog is like continues to be in his face and trying to get the ball, his growl will escalate to like a bark, and he gets he just I can see him tense up, but he's never actually bitten another dog or anything like that.
Okay. And this is just with him and like his specific toys that he likes, like the ball. This isn't necessarily like because he's with you or something like that. It's just him and his toy.
Exactly, like his balls. He's
Okay.
upset with balls. It's just like it's actually kind of hilarious, but yeah.
Yeah. Um, Okie dokie. So I would probably call that a little bit of resource guarding. So
Yep.
that's completely normal. Dogs to every degree can exhibit it. It's not a necessarily like special thing that's like unique to certain dogs. It makes sense. They find something they like. They don't want somebody else taking it away from them. That's just how they're going to be sometimes. Some dogs are a little bit more extreme than others. Some dogs are like, I don't care. They can have it. Again, with the resource guarding, similar to the reactivity, where we can't make him enjoy sharing, I guess,
Right.
but we can teach him that there's certain behaviors you're not going to do if a situation where you have to share occurs. So he might not want to give up his ball, and he might really love his like ball time, and he's all over it, whatever. But if a dog comes up to him, we just want him at the very least to not make that decision to like lunge and bark and growl and do all these things because one, we don't know if there's a degree that he can escalate to where he's like, okay, you're not staying away from this. Now I'm going to go in for a bite on you. And then two, you never know if another dog is going to take it the wrong way. And then they're like, no, I'm
Exactly.
actually going to take that ball from you. And then all of a sudden there's a fight. So that's something that would also probably need to be addressed. It's pretty straightforward. It's just more letting him know that uh, like you can have this thing, but if it's time for it to be taken away from you, if this dog is going to come up to you, if you're going to reach down and grab it or whatever, he needs to have no issue with that. He can, in his head, not like it, be like, I hate that he just took my ball, but we would want him to not make that decision to do something about it.
Yeah.
And it's pretty straightforward and simple as just like doing a few drills of some specific things that we do, and then just correcting any bad behaviors that come up, because again, we're just teaching him, to what degree is he allowed to act on this stuff.
Right.
But again, that's fairly straightforward. It's not usually a huge thing. It sounds like I would recommend it for him just because if he's doing like the little bit of lunging, not sure if he would actually commit if a dog still pursued into the space there, or if it's enough for a dog to take it the wrong way.
Right. Exactly.
Um, and then for the general like excitement and jumping on people, that is also a fairly easy fix. Um, the way we go about kind of those extra behaviors like that is we have two ways depending on what the owner is looking for and how we want to go about addressing it. There is elimination of the behavior and then control. So the way that works is, let's say we'll use the jumping for example. Let's say you don't want them jumping on people ever. Like, okay, like somebody comes up to you, you're excited, you're just not going to jump on people. That's it. Then the way that we would go about it is correcting with the e-collar directly without saying any cue, any verbal warning or anything like that, because we're letting him know as soon as you make this decision to exhibit this behavior, the consequences happening right then and there. So then he thinks, I'm not going to jump. As soon as I jump, something's going to happen that I don't like, which is the e-collar. So I'm not going to jump anymore. You can still go up, say hi to people. He can be excited. He can do all this other stuff, but jumping is now off the table. So that's elimination.
Mm-hmm.
There's the second way is called control. And the way that works is a common one that people like to use this for is for like barking inside the house. So some people like a little bit of barking for the added security. They like to know when somebody's at their door. Some people who live in an apartment maybe where they can't have any barking, they just want it gone. So for the people who do like a little bit of barking, but maybe when they say like, okay, that's enough barking, then the dog stops. That's where the more control method comes in. So what we do with that is, let's say somebody comes up to the door, um, Henry starts barking a little bit, and you're like, okay, he barked a few times, now I want him to stop. Now we come in with a verbal cue. For example, you might have heard it around the facility here where we just like, shh, we do that noise. Or you can use really anything you want. You could say like, stop, quiet, enough, anything, just uh, basically a command for like him to like cut it out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's say he hears you say like stop, and he's like, I don't care, I'm gonna keep barking. Now we follow up with the e-collar, and doing that gives that word that you're using to get him to stop barking more power, because then the next time he's gonna hear the words stop, and then he's gonna think, okay, I better stop now, because after stop, if I keep going, then the e-collar kicks in. I don't want that. So he
Right.
knows he can bark a little bit, but when he hears the word stop, he's like, okay, I'm done. We're good.
Right.
Um, so for the jumping, is that something that you're wanting more for him kind of not to do? in any scenarios when greeting people, or is it something where you're like, okay, he can jump a little bit, but when I tell him to chill out, he's got to chill out?
Yeah, I'd say it's more we'd want to eliminate it.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense. And then like that being said, like if you encourage him to jump on you at some point, he's probably still gonna do it. So it's not like you're
right,
completely getting rid of his like ability to jump up. It's more just like his default is gonna be, I'm not gonna do this. And that's
right,
um ideal, especially if guests are coming over. You know, you never know what kind of scenario
right.
um could occur. Okie dokie. Um, does did you have any questions on that stuff there, like all the behavior stuff and everything that I went over?
Nope,
Okay.
nope.
Um, and then moving to the next part, normally cures where I kind of give people more information on the e-collar, but I know that you're already familiar with it.
Yeah.
Uh, briefly, was there any questions that you had with it, or were you thinking of changing around the system, or how are you viewing everything there?
I mean, I probably need to get a new one. I think. So the one I have now is almost 3 years old, and like it doesn't actually ever shut off. If you know what I mean. Like in
Okay.
terms of like the green light always stays on. Like very.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if there's something different I have to do that you know of, but like
Yeah.
very rarely will it stay shut off.
Okay. Um, when you turn it on, do you turn it on usually with like two red dots?
Yeah.
Okay. Is the remote like a side like dial, or is it on the top and you like twist it?
The twisters on the top.
Okay. Um, if you have the one that I think you might have, one thing you could try is when you touch the red buttons together, is it normally you do a quick touch or you hold and wait for a second?
I try to hold and wait a little bit longer because I notice when I do that, that's when it increases my likelihood that it's going to stay shut off.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Otherwise, if I do it too quickly, it always just starts flashing green, comes back on again.
Okay. Yeah, it could just be that there might be some like internal error happening.
Yeah.
That's something that can be looked at ahead of time. If you're wanting to stick with that collar, uh, how much does Henry weigh?
He's like 74 pounds.
Okay. Um, depending on what collar you have, we might have you do an upgrade to a little bit more of a stronger collar just based on his size. And what's your number usually at on the collar that you have now?
I can grab the box. It's like right here. I'll see what the model number is. I usually have him. He'll respond uh like mid 20s.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll grab the box. Hold on one sec.
Okie dokie.
So it's the 3500 NCP.
Oh, okay, 3,500. All right. That could actually work fine then, as long as obviously there's no issues with it or anything.
Yeah.
Uh, that would actually be fine. I'm trying to think. What we can do is, depending on whichever program you do, whenever like we're first meeting with you, however that works out, you obviously bring the collar. We could take a look at it. If
Yeah.
it's working fine, it's working fine, then we'll stick with it. If not, then we can see if either we can get it fixed or if it's something where a new collar is needed. So
Yeah. Yeah,
um,
that's great.
that could be more handled down the line. But a 3,500 is fine for him if everything's working correctly with it.
Great.
Uh, uh, did you have any other specific things regarding the e-collar itself or anything with that really?
No. Oh, here comes Henry to visit. Here he is. Say hi, bud.
Guy, he's a nice dog.
Oh, we love him so much.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's cool. I love big dogs. Um, so As far as the e-collar itself and the number, working in the 20s range is pretty good. For right now, I assume we'll probably bump it up and down based on whatever we're working on and all that.
Yeah.
But that sounds good because my only other concern would have just been if you guys were at like a higher number with him, like consistently, then I would say, okay, maybe you might want to look at different collars. But working within the 20 range, we still have a lot of room to go to see like if he's higher at the dog park with a lot of distractions, if he's easier at home.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, the interesting thing there is sometimes I have to go higher because Nick thinks that I'm choking Henry if the collar's on too tight. So
oh,
I'm gonna need your guys' help in
yeah.
convincing that like I'm not actually choking him. Like we need to have it tight enough so that Henry will respond in
Yeah.
the mid high 20s so that
Mhm.
I don't have to, because otherwise what Nick always does is he'll loosen the collar and then I have to go up to like 40 to 45
Mhm.
because the nodes are too far away from his neck, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that we do notice from time to time. So hopefully through the course of the program, there could be a more consistent fitting for him.
right.
But I would say definitely I would err on the tighter side just because, like you said, you're finding lower numbers. You're probably getting a little bit more consistency when you do decide to use it. And then it's also going to avoid the collar from actually possibly causing him discomfort because if it's loosened to a degree where it can move around, now if the nodes go to the bottom of the neck, you have the two metal points right on the most sensitive part of his throat, and we don't want that either. So we always
Right.
put it on the left or the right side, and then even if it switches around the other way, let's say he shakes his head, the e-collar's directly on the back of his neck, that's right where his spine is. So he's going to be more sensitive to the stimulation. So, one thing that I usually tell people who maybe don't want to have the collar on very tight because they think it might be choking them or it's just uncomfortable, I would say to me, it's more worth it to have the collar tight and then, oh, I can see that he's actually choking. Let me loosen it up. Rather than have it loose, it moves around. I go to tap. Now he's feeling a little bit more pain because we just let the e-collar move to a point that's more sensitive on his neck. Uh,
Right.
so um, I don't know, that might help you, I guess, like explain to him
Yeah.
why we do it that way, just because we're trying to avoid something that's going to be more uncomfortable for him. And worst case scenario, if there's been times where I accidentally put it on my dog a little bit too tight and I'm not necessarily paying attention, and then I just see him, do a cough or two, and I'm like, oh, sorry about that, buddy. I loosen it up and he's good to go.
Yeah.
So it's much easier to loosen it if you're noticing anything than it is to have it loose. You go to tap, either no stimulation is going to him or you're at too low of a number. In an emergency situation, you want that immediate control because you never know what could happen. And then you're also going to avoid any chance of causing him actually more discomfort if it goes to the bottom or the top of the neck.
Yep.
Um, does all that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Um, so as far as programs go, what are
Mhm.
your what are your goals with Henry after the training? Like, are you just trying to clean up the heel and maybe have the like a few other commands, or are you trying to get him kind of like above where he was at before, or like what does everything look like by the end of the program to you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's basically cleaning it up, like reinforcing heel, like where he was after his last training when he was like 8 months old,
Yeah.
up until like he was actually like 2 years old, like it was perfect. Like he wasn't like sure he deviated every once in a while,
Yeah.
like but like it was so good, and so it's basically just kind of cleaning it up, and helping both Nick and I be more consistent, with him, uh, to sort of keep it all in an equilibrium. So
Yeah.
I know it's not going to be perfection. I know like anything like that. So that's basically it.
What did you guys cover in the program initially?
So initially it was, the heel command, sit, stay, um, you know, letting him go off leash and making sure that like he's still the recall,
Yeah.
that he's responding to his name. So
Uh-huh.
again, Nick did not go through any of that
No.
training. I did, but so we kind of covered those. I think it was the 6 week program
Okay.
that I did with Jesse when we did that.
Okie dokie. Yeah, that sounds like the 6 week program. With the recall, a few extra commands, heal. Um, were you trying to stick with in person again, or were you looking at more of a board and train or daycare and train?
In person would be best because I think it'll help, with Nick and I both to be there together so that
Yeah,
we're learning it together. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, if you're looking for the most direct training for the both of you, I would definitely stick with the in person. Obviously, you're there doing everything with Henry in the moment, so that would be the best, especially for your partner to see, just so that way he can also get a hands-on approach with
Right.
Henry. Um, for for Henry, if you're just trying to re-up all of those commands, including the stationary commands and everything like that, I would say at minimum, you'd probably go with another 6 week just because we take, obviously, it's one class a week. We take two classes on heel, one class on recall. So there's three definitely for those. Um, in your scenario, it might be, well, no, because if we're getting kind of a fresh start with your partner as well, then we still do two classes. Two classes heal, one class recall, and then three classes that is kind of more up to your choosing.
Right.
So let's say one class you want to go over your stationary commands like sitting down and all that. Um,
Right.
given that everything's going smoothly with those, that can probably be done in one class. If Henry's really struggling with them, it could take two classes. And then for the um, excitement stuff, dealing with it in the home, if it's something where once you start applying the e-collar and you try it out at home, if it's something that you're needing more help uh, from a trainer in home, then you can make one of your classes an in-home visit, work on whatever drills in home that you need to do to work on that excitement and that jumping as well. But
Mm-hmm.
um, that's something you can more feel out as you go through the program because maybe he's good with the jumping now. You kind of already know how to address it. You're fine with him. He's solid. Then maybe you could use that last class for a different command, trying out maybe long leash on him, or I don't know if you are familiar with the place command, where you just say place, they go to a spot designated as place, and they could do whatever they want there, lay down, sit up, chew a bone, whatever. They just can't get off of this spot that we call place until we release them. So like
Okay. We never did that one. Okay. Okay.
Um, yeah, for example, that could be like a dog bed, or like here we have raised dog beds that we put dogs on and they chill out there for a second. Um, it's just another command. But I would say, yeah, at minimum, 6 weeks. And then if you're really wanting to introduce like long leash or introduce new commands to him, then you could go to 9 week, but I would stay within that range, 6 to 9 weeks.
Yeah. The 6 weeks I think feels about right.
Yeah. And then I think you could pretty easily get done everything you're wanting to get done here. A lot of this is straightforward, um, especially with his already background of handling the e-collar. There shouldn't be any special issues coming up here. Oh, you'd probably want to have one of those classes on resource guarding. That's
Yeah.
probably its own class most likely. Uh,
Yep.
but 6 weeks sounds good. Um, and then that can be with either Jesse again, if you want to stick with him, or it could be with Enrique. I don't know if you're familiar with him or if you've ever had the chance to meet him. But he does the in-person along with Jesse. They both take up clients.
So I've never met Enrique, which is fine.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are all great. So is it? I'm looking online. Is Enrique the only? Like, are you saying I should do like in home, or should we just go to like Oz Park all the time?
Oh, whether you do Jesse or Enrique, it's up to you, whatever classes you want to do in home. So like if you do the 6 week program with Enrique, those aren't all going to be in home.
Right.
It would be the same as with Jesse. Like you have your classes either at the facility or weather permitting at the park. And then you would have to say like, okay, this next class I want to do in home, and then you set it up that way. Um, Enrique would be, I would probably recommend more for this case, just because he's, very good, obviously, just as Jesse is. Um, and since you're not having any like major aggression issues or anything, it's also a little bit more of like it's going to save you some money just
Yep.
because Jesse is more reserved for the more intense cases, whereas something like this for Enrique will be very easy, no problem, and then it's also a little bit cheaper.
Yeah. Is this 6 weeks? Is it the 1,275?
I believe so. I'd have to go on the website to double check. I don't have all the prices on hand. Um, that being said, though, even everything that we're discussing now, you don't have to make a decision in this second. I'm more just kind of letting you
Yeah.
know your options.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, yeah.
but yeah, for this, I would probably recommend Enrique, unless for some reason you specifically want to do Jesse again, then you can. There's no issues with that at all. Both of them are going to be able to get the job done. Um, and then the only other thing with scheduling with Jesse is that his schedule might be a little bit more specific, just because
Right.
we're moving to a new facility right now. There's a lot of stuff going on, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult to schedule. Not saying you can't, but just giving you a heads up.
And should I just email you guys and one of your front desk folks could help me understand the range of scheduling availability, or do you know off the top of your head?
Yeah. So after this consultation, I'm actually going to have one of the assistants here get back to you. I believe it's going to be Maria. I know you probably don't know her, but she handles Jesse's schedule if you're going with Jesse, and then Tina if you're going with Enrique. So one of them are going to get in contact with you with the information that you'll need moving forward, and then you can also ask them any questions that you'd like to ask as far as scheduling, price. If there's any questions that maybe you forgot to ask here that still involve the training, you can still ask them and they can relay it to a trainer who can get back to you. So basically you're going to get a follow-up email, and then in that chain you can go through whatever you'd like as far as pricing, scheduling, collar,
Great.
anything like that.
Yeah, let's go down the path with Enrique just because the additional flexibility on the schedule will be helpful because we have to
Yeah.
coordinate, with myself and with Nick
Mhm.
and we both have a lot going on as well. So I think that'll just make it easier for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. So then I'll probably go ahead and have Enrique's assistant Tina message you. So you'll just
Great.
keep an eye out for that email. It should be today or tomorrow.
Okay.
And then I'll also have this other information included in there, so that way she knows, and then everybody's on the same page moving forward. But did you have any other questions or anything else that you felt like you wanted to address more specifically, or?
No, I don't think so, and I don't think Nick will have anything else either. I mean, we chatted before this, and I've addressed all of his items too. So this is great. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem at all. So I'll go ahead, get in contact with Tina, have her send you that email, and then everything else can be figured out from there.
Awesome.
Yep. Okay. We can go ahead and end the consultation.
Great.
Let us know if you need anything or have any more questions, and you have a nice day.
Thanks. Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you as well. Bye bye.
Talk to you soon.